Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World. If you're looking for consistent content on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Prime Sports World is a pretty good place to hang out. We go live basically every single day, bringing the most up-to-date content. Today, we're going to be bringing you our Dallas Cowboys 2022 season preview. Let you know what we think about what they're going to be like this season. I'm, of course, your host, David On Point. Right there is Mr. TJ Hopkins. Thank you very much for joining me, TJ. How are you, buddy?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm doing okay. Before we get into anything Dallas Cowboys related, I just wanted to give our thoughts and prayers out to the victims of the Highland Park shooting. Seventh victim died a couple hours ago. I think it was over 20 people injured in that shooting. So, from Prime Sports World, our thoughts and prayers to go out to all the victims of that shooting. At a 4th of July parade, shouldn't be where you go to a parade and get shot. It shouldn't be the way that the world is right now, but, it is what it is, I guess.
And thoughts and prayers to the family of Jalen Walker. A routine traffic stop turned into a black man getting shot 60 times by Akron PD. 60. For a broken taillight.
Yeah, but so if you want to join us and talk a little bit NFL action, I'm going ahead and share the StreamYard link into all of the places. So if you want to join, talk us some Dallas Cowboys football, feel free to do that. TJ, Dallas, what do you think about Dallas before we get into some storylines?
Same old, good on paper, should win the division. They have the better, they feel like they have the better of the quarterbacks of the division. They are. It's the same old. They care more. Like they feel like we should win because we're the Cowboys, versus actually putting a product on the field, a winning product on the field.
Oh man, I don't know how accurate that is. I feel like Dallas is for sure putting a winning product on the field. They spend a ton of money on this roster every single year. It just doesn't always work out. I mean, it doesn't always work out. I mean. It's not winning. I don't think they necessarily think they should just go to the Super Bowl because they're the Cowboys.
They do.
They don't, dude. Come on, get out of here.
Yeah, they do. Do you hear Cowboy fans talk?
Yeah, I've heard Cowboys fans talk a time or two. But
what
they put a lot of work into putting out a good product.
What fan base could go 2-14, 2 and whatever, and be like, we're gonna win the next year, right? Cowboy fans, that's who. You don't hear Jags fans go when they went 1-16. Hey, we win in the Super Bowl next year. You ain't hear that from them. The Browns went 1-31 over the course of 2 years. You ain't hear not one talk of Super Bowl from Browns fans. It just wasn't happening. Cowboys fans, like that sense of entitlement is there.
All right, I'll give you that. Let's move into their storyline. I expect Dallas to be pretty good this season. So let's talk about Mike McCarthy. So he was kind of a very safe hire when, Jerry Jones picked him to be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. So let's talk Super Bowl or bust for Mike McCarthy to keep his job, yes or no?
Well, I wouldn't call it a safe hire. It was a Jerry Jones comfortable hire.
Yeah, I mean, but it was still a pretty safe hire. I mean, compared to taking a real swing and hiring somebody who's has some cachet.
It's Super Bowl or bust, not by his choice. All right, we already know the Cowboys are not a Super Bowl roster. They're not a piece. This is not a piece away from a Super Bowl. They're not. Let's be honest. So it's unfortunate. I'm almost along the lines of, if I'm Mike McCarthy, if you feel that way about me, if you feel like you have 2 Super Bowl replacements on my staff, then just fire me already.
Yeah.
Stop having me walk on eggshells. Stop having me every so often have to look over my shoulder is this today? Is this the week? It's Super Bowl or bust, but obviously not by his choice. This is the powers that be. This is the powers that be that is Jerry Jones. This is his doing.
This is I firmly believe that this is if the Dallas Cowboys don't win the Super Bowl, or at least compare in the NFC Championship game this season, Mike McCarthy will get fired after this season. I think there's been a lot of money spent on this roster, a lot of money spent on, on creating a good lineup here, especially on offense, with Dak Prescott getting his money and Ezekiel Elliott getting his money and CeeDee Lamb now getting his money, or will be getting his money at some point. Yeah, we'll be getting his money. There's a lot of money locked up into the defensive side of the football. What's up, David Henderson? Yeah, Cowboy fans are awful arrogant. And Mike McCarthy does look like a live-action Eric Hartman. I think you mentioned that on the last podcast where we mentioned Mike McCarthy as well. But
he is not a part of the fan base that should be talking about some entitlements.
Yeah. I think if the Dallas Cowboys still take a real step forward, I think the leash on Mike McCarthy is going to be extremely short. I think he's made some questionable coaching decisions in games that cost them games down the stretch here and there that could have been avoided.
It's 100%. It's decisions that him as a veteran head coach should know better.
Correct, 100%. Like you just can't have. And Mr. Henderson, if you want, I can send you the StreamYard link if you want to join us on this show. That is in the Prime Sports World Facebook page. So if you wanted to join us on this show, man, you're more than welcome to do so. Next storyline. Ezekiel Elliott touches for Ezekiel Elliott. So he's been trending down on his touches over the last 2 seasons. So last season in a 17-game season where he played all 17 games, he had 237 touches. That is the least amount of touches he's had in a season since his second season where he only played 10 games. So what do you think is going to be happening here with Ezekiel Elliott's touches? I know they have Tony Pollard there.
Well, you brought in a Tony Pollard for that reason, to reduce the workload of an Ezekiel Elliott. Like when you look at it, like you said, it's his lowest since his second year in the league, right? He went from 320. He went from 322 to 242. That's 100. Like that's not even 100. That's almost 100 carry difference.
Well, you got to remember. You got to remember 2017. He got suspended for 6 games at the beginning of the season. Yeah.
And then 2015, we saw that jump back up to 304. Then 301, 244, he missed the game. And then last year, like you said, he 237, but he barely got over 1,000 yards. 1,000 yards is 1,000 yards. I don't care how you get it. 1,002, you can still say, hey, I was a 1,000-yard rusher last season. What's really getting people down about Ezekiel Elliott is his average. It's like his rookie year, 5.1, then 4.1, then back up to 4.7, then 4.5, 4, 4.2. Me personally, I love that.
Yeah, you talked on numerous shows where we talk about 4 yards of carry is what should be the benchmark for what running back should be shooting for. Because as you mentioned, you get 4 yards to 2nd and 6. You get another 4 yards, 3rd and 2. You get another 4 yards, that's a first down. You keep moving the chains, and you get to burn the clock.
And your defense gets a rest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I also think what they don't like is his yards per game has gone down.
His touches have gone down. So obviously, when your touches go down, you're not going to have as many yards per game. It's just simple mathematics.
It's simple mathematics, but it's what people also have to fail to realize is that O-line that he ran behind those first 2 years, that's not the same O-line right now.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that a little bit, but yeah, this has been an extremely reshuffled offensive line over the last 3 or 4 years.
To answer your initial, so that's what went. So his first year, he averaged 108 yards per game. Then that went down to 98.3.
Yeah, but I mean, he led the league in rushing that season.
Then he went down to 95.6, then 84, 65, and then last year he averaged 59 yards a game. I'm going to answer your initial question, I'm going to give him somewhere along the lines of what he's doing right now. So like 230 to 250, 250 touches a game, because that's putting the ball in his hands doesn't put the ball in Tony Pollard's hands, who is a dynamic game changer. Like Tony Pollard's more elusive, especially at this stage in their careers, than Ezekiel Elliott. Like he's less beat up. Like he doesn't have all the wear and tear and punishment that Zeke Elliott took.
Man, Tony Pollard is only 1 year younger than Ezekiel Elliott,
and his body is in that much better shape.
Yeah, right. Like, well, I guess technically two, because Tony Pollard just had his 25th birthday. Ezekiel Elliott's 27th birthday is in later this month.
Right. So I'm gonna give him 250 carries for the season. I'm also gonna give him anywhere from 50 to 70 receptions for the season. So that's a combined what, maybe 300 combined touches.
So he usually averages about 50 catches a season. I'm rounding a little bit there. I don't really feel like doing this math, but it's roughly about 50 catches a season. His best season was 2018, where he had 77 catches for 567 yards. Last season, he had 47 catches. Yeah, I think 300 is probably a pretty good number to kind of base his touches on. He's had 10 touchdowns last season. It's not as good as his rookie season where he had 15 touches, but the guy is very involved in the offense, and I think the Dallas Cowboys understand. Like, they're a better team when they're running the football effectively. And it used to be a lot more true when they had one of the best offensive lines in football. They no longer have that, but they still have two really good running backs that are all change of pace guys. I think the other knock on Ezekiel, he doesn't really break those big runs anymore as like he used to. Like, he's much more of a dink and dunk running back where he kind of just takes those chunk yards. You don't see him really break one as often as he did, in his rookie season or when he was a lot younger.
Yeah, it's but I think more so, like, we can talk about all we want, but there's no telling how he feels. Like, he has to hear the chatter. He has to hear what's being said about him. Again, this is the age of social media. Everybody knows what's being said about them. Everybody. There is no, I don't pay attention to nothing like that. It's hard not to.
Yeah,
like
sure.
It's hard not to, right? Because at the end of the day, you're human. So he knows he needs to have a bounce back season more than any of us will ever know. Right? He knows he knows what he has to do. He just has to go out and do it. And I'm praying for a healthy season for him. Like, no nagging injuries. No, I pray he plays the full 17. Right?
Me too. I mean, I just like seeing good football players on the field.
But to your point, they also have to understand that when they were at their best, it was a 50-50 game. Like, Dak threw the ball, like, it was a 50-50 run pass. Like, there is no, I paid Dak $80 million. I got to throw the ball 40 times. That's not how you're going to win, bro.
I mean, Ezekiel, you got the bag too, and you should be giving him some touches too. I mean, just because you give one guy a bag doesn't mean you get to ignore the other guy you gave the bag to. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
None.
Yeah, I think 300 is probably the good number for Ezekiel. We'll see. Let us know down in the comment section how many touches you think Ezekiel have when the season's done. I'm going to say, 300 is probably a pretty good guess. Let's talk about DPOY. Better chance to win DPOY this year, Micah Parsons or Trayvon Diggs?
It's 100% Micah Parsons. All right, like, I get it. I get why Trayvon Diggs is a part of this conversation. Like, you led the league in picks last season, but when you give up as many yards as you take away, you're not doing the damage you think you're doing. You're breaking even. Right? Like, if you give up 1,000 yards receiving on just you personally, not the entire secondary, just you by yourself, right? Receivers had a collective over 1,000 yards against you, Trayvon Diggs. So you can talk about leading the league in picks all you want, but as many times as you got quarterbacks, they got you. So you didn't do as much, like, you didn't do the damage you think you did, bro. Like, you broke even. So Michael Parsons, because of his jackknife ability on Swiss Army knife ability on defense, like, he can play linebacker, he can rush the passes, he can cover tight ends if they ask him to.
Right? Yeah, especially now that Randy Gregory is no longer in the mix, and I know they brought in Dante Fowler Jr., which we'll get into later, but I mean, Dante Fowler Jr. has been all over the league for a reason. Parsons is the guy for sure on this when it comes to this conversation. I think it'll be interesting that maybe they see a little bit of a scheme switch when it comes to Dallas, and like maybe they talk to Trayvon Diggs and be like, "Hey, stop jumping routes all the time. Like, you have to be a little more conservative, because when you're getting burnt." And it's not helping us. Like, you had 2 touchdowns. He had 11 interceptions, but you gave up a ton of yards. Parsons is only scratching the surface of how good he can be. 13 sacks last season in his rookie year, 64 solo tackles, 20 assisted, 84 tackles. He had 12 stuffs. Which is a stat I think they just added. I mean, which is Yeah, like I've never seen this ad on ESPN before. It just says stuffs. Like it just has 12 stuffs. Like, all right, like
That's probably just like shutting down the run.
yeah,
Yeah, and I have all the faith in Dan Quinn to put both of these dudes in a position for them to be successful. Like, but if I had to bet on, if I was a betting man, a gambling man, which I just don't. But if you are, I would feel more comfortable putting that bread on Parsons to win DPOY than I would Stephon Diggs. Like, that's just me.
I totally agree with you
Let me
100%.
trade my
If I got Parsons, I think it's. I'm not sure it's all that close. Just being honest. I think Trayvon Diggs still has a long way to go as a corner, and Parsons may be the best
like
one of the best outside
like
linebackers in
like
football
like like,
already.
like not to cut you, like if Diggs does what he did last year, like if he gives up, if he takes away 11, if he does that again, but the yardage given up goes is like cut in half somehow, then yeah, like if he gets 11 picks again, and that over 1,000 turns into like 500-600,
Yeah,
that's lockdown. That's lockdown. Like
I mean, if he makes like an
yeah.
AJ Terrell type jump and includes the same interceptions, AJ Terrell had an amazing was his second season last year. Was a PFF darling. But yeah, I still think it's Parsons, even if Diggs. I think Diggs is going to have an uphill battle. I don't think he's going to get 11 interceptions either next season. I think teams are going to start to throw away from him
True.
because the other guy on the other side is Anthony Brown, and
Well,
he's really
I don't think they're gonna throw away from him because, like I said, as many times as he got quarterbacks, they got him too. So they got 11. He got 11 picks, but that didn't deter quarterbacks from throwing his direction.
It's true. All right, let's move on to their draft. Round 1, Tyler Smith, offensive tackle out of Tulsa. He is projected to be their starting left guard for next season. Sam Williams, linebacker, Ole Miss. Jalen Tolbert, wide receiver, South Alabama. Jake Ferguson, tight end out of Wisconsin. Matt, and I don't know. I'm not going to try. Offensive tackle out of North Dakota. What?
Probably will let's go.
Well, let's go. All right. Deron Bland, quarterback, Fresno State. Damon Clark, linebacker, LSU. John Ridgway, defensive tackle at Arkansas. Devin Harper, linebacker, Oklahoma State. So I know that the Cowboys had a big need at offensive line. I just don't like drafting a project that's going to need to start immediately for you because they're going to need him to play either left guard or possibly even right tackle because they lost Leo Collins in the offseason. This guy's a project. I don't love it.
Yeah,
He had all of the pauses with penalties in the NFL. I think he had more holding calls than anybody in college last season.
Yeah, you made that abundantly clear when they drafted him. How much you didn't, like the draft pick. You don't like the fact that he's going to have to start right away. Well, he's going to have to start right away. Like, what better time to get called up than the present, right?
Sure, but I mean, he wasn't playing against actually elite competition there in Tulsa, and still had penalty problems and being burnt problems. It doesn't make any sense. There were like the kid from Central Michigan had a better grade when it comes to draftable prospects.
So let me ask you this. Wait. So let me ask you, so the kid from Central Michigan, is his level of competition that much better than that of Tulsa?
No. It's close.
Nah.
I think I'd rather take the MAC over the Conference USA.
That's not being biased at all.
No, I'm sure not at all. It's just not my favorite pick, but he has all the tools and all the intangibles. I mean, the guy's built to play off as a tackle in the NFL. I mean, if they can keep Smith, the other Smith, healthy and have him play right tackle, and Tyron Smith, he's only 31, even though he's played a lot of NFL. So I don't know.
I mean, but that's what training camp is for. That's what.
Yeah, true.
So that's what all that stuff is for. So you can work out the kinks, however many that there are, right?
And Sam Williams, who probably would have been a first-round pick if he hadn't had all the off-the-field stuff going on with the sexual battery charge that was eventually dropped. He's got some other stuff, going on. But he is a very good football player with all the intangibles you look for, and somebody's going to be an edge rusher.
Yeah, that's you hate to see stuff like that. I mean, like it didn't really cost him because he still made it. He just went from first round to second round. I get that's a significant drop off, but at the end of the day, like the goal for these players is to get drafted. They don't care where it happens. They just want to be able to say that, hey, I was drafted into the NFL, all right, and he achieved that goal.
And not to mention, depending on your situation, that way you can get that. You don't have to worry about that guaranteed. Like you'll be a free agent sooner in the second round than you would be a first round pick.
Right, but at the same time, like he also
You don't have the same level of guaranteed money either.
Like he also should be able to like play himself into a better contract. He's going to be a surefire rotational piece.
Yep.
You know, like he has to be. All right. Same thing with Jalen Tolbert. So like Jalen Tolbert made he made headlines a bit because he said something like along the lines of like, I'm going to change the culture here in Dallas. Like, okay,
what does that mean? What does that mean?
What does that right? What does that mean? Second of all, do you know where you're going? Do you know where you're going? Right? Like, do you know the guy that drafted you? He is the culture. Right? Changing
1,400 yards and 82 catches, 8 touchdowns in 2021. That's pretty nice. Even at South Alabama, that's some pretty nice production.
And he immediately replaces
Mari Cooper, I guess.
Cedric Wilson.
Cedric Wilson's Cedric Wilson.
Yeah, he immediately replaces Cedric Wilson as the slot guy. So CD Lamb, we talked about him like you're going to be number one, right? Like you're not getting the opposing team's number 2 corner anymore, right? You're not getting that. You're getting everybody's best corner. That means Jalen Ramsey. Whenever you play the Rams, you see him.
Yep.
Right, like that's what that means. Jake Ferguson, Big Ten fella. Saw a lot of them. Just live in Illinois. This is Big Ten country. Saw a lot of Jake Ferguson. Right, very solid tight end, and it's also something they need. You know, it's the constant question of, you know, Bobby Schultz's cousin Dalton. Like, you know, David, stole your joke.
But yeah, they also released Blake Jarwin, and like outside of you know Bobby Schultz's cousin Dalton Schultz, they don't have a lot else in the tight end room. They don't like, and you know 145 catches for 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns over his college career. Pretty good stuff.
Yeah, right. And Matt Valesco, I'm not even gonna obviously. No, that's North Dakota, not North Dakota State. So never mind. I take back what I was gonna say. Because we don't know much about you. I'm pretty sure you can play.
6'7", 312 pounds, started 29 of 32 games in North Dakota at left tackle.
Yep, that'll do it. Same thing with DeRon Bland. Don't know much about you. West Coast bias, Fresno State. Damon Clark, you played on a bad LSU team. Nothing much you can do about that. John Rick,
over the course of his career, he had 135 tackles, 15 tackles for this is actually just one season, last season, 2021. 135 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 4 pass deflections, 1 interception in 1 year.
And
that is quite the year.
That sounds like somebody who should have went in like the 3rd round.
He did have to have a spinal fusion surgery after a herniated disc that was discovered during the combine. So I imagine that's where he had to sit out. He was coming off of so I imagine he'll have to sit this entire season.
Like that sounds like a dude that should have been drafted like mid to late 2nd, early 3rd.
Yeah.
Right? Like
if they don't find that, if he doesn't have to have that surgery, he's a 2nd round pick.
With those numbers, absolutely. John Ridgway, again, don't know much about you. I mean, I guess obviously you play SEC football. That's the cream of the crop, you know. So
he played 1 year at Arkansas before being a grad transfer. He played 4 years at Illinois State. Last season, he had 39 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks while being a member of the Razorbacks. He's an exceptional run defender, which is something the Cowboys need.
And he's going to be, if he makes the roster, he's probably going to be, he's definitely going to be a rotational piece. Same thing with David Harper if he makes the roster. It's
6 foot 239. A little bit smaller than most running backs, or most linebackers, but
Like 9 times out of
Spent one season as a full-time starter, 96 tackles, 6 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 15 quarterback pressures in 1 year.
like 9 times out of 10, guys like Devin Harper are special teamers. That's how they make and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, the name of the game, like your first 2-3 years is making the roster. Right? Like that's what you want to do, right? Make the roster. All in all, you don't want to have your hopes pinned on Tyler Smith to be, solidify your draft class. But if Sam Williams, Jalen Tolbert, and Jake Ferguson can produce for you, you have it's the Tyler Smith pick. No matter how it turns out, is going to be overlooked.
And overall, I kind of like their draft. I mean, I know I was talking smack about Tyler Smith, but he could be a very good player, and he has all the intangibles to be an elite. I think he's like 6'7", 330. Like he could be an elite left tackle in this league. I just think he's going to be a project, and he's going to take some time to develop, which is most players that get taken in the NFL draft anyways. But everything they did after that, I kind of love. Like I loved Sam Williams, kind of a steal in the second round. Jalen Tolbert should be a good slot receiver at round 3. Like Jake Ferguson, another offensive tackle there in the 5th round, who brings you some value. And then they got some value guys in the 5th round and 6th. I think the Dallas Cowboys actually did a pretty good job with their draft this year.
I wish they would have paid more, like you said, more attention to that offensive line, because that's what's really been declining for them the last couple of years. Like again, the health of Tyron Smith is issue for a cause for concern. Like I don't know the last time Tyron Smith played a full season.
It's been a while.
Go ahead, move on.
Moving on from their draft, let's talk about their free agency a little bit. So their major additions: James Washington, Dante Fowler Jr. Departures: Randy Gregory, Cedric Wilson, Lil Collins, Connor Williams, Amari Cooper, Keanu Neal. They did re-sign some of those guys. They franchise tagged Dalton Schultz. They also brought back Michael Gallup on a 5-year, $62.5 million deal. They brought back their long snapper, whatever. They re-signed. They gave Demarcus Lawrence a 3-year, $30 million extension. Malik Hooker agreed to a 2-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys as well. But yeah, I mean, they brought back a lot of their own guys. But yeah, Leighton Vander Esch re-signed on this team as well. Even though he probably should retire. But anyways. But what do we think about what they did here with their free agency? As a team that was pretty cap strong, and this is the way it goes when you don't have a lot of cap space, because you have it all in like 3 players. That Randy Gregory loss is going to hurt bad. But
yeah, that was not how you were supposed to handle that situation. Again, I get it. He has a troubled past, right? Like he is,
He's suspended indefinitely, I think, twice for marijuana violations. So
which to me is whatever. That's overdoing it. That's overdoing it, because I'd rather smoke weed than pop 30 Xanax pills or Oxy pills like they give them, just so they can play on Sundays.
I still think without a prescription that would still be against the controlled substance abuse, but. Yeah, I tend to agree with you, but yeah, I think he's turned it on the last 2 seasons. I don't think it was as much a concern. And
no, but his point is a valid point, right? Like if you're gonna put this language in one contract, then you have to put that language in all contracts. You can't just make a special exception because of me. Like you can't have a games cap or games incentive in the contract and it only be for me. Like, no, that has to be universal language in all the contracts. And he called them out for it, and they made national headlines, and rightly so. Losing Randy Gregory, to your point, yeah, that's gonna hurt them. La'el Collins was a punching bag for the offensive line the last couple of years. Same thing with Connor Williams.
Both those guys were cap casualties for 100%.
Amari Cooper, it was more so along the lines of
another cap casualty, basically.
That and Amari Cooper, like you could basically count on him for like 8 games, and they were all home.
Yeah, it's true.
Like that was the thing with Amari Cooper. Like Amari Cooper did not perform well on the road and
or in the playoffs
and cold weather. And you put Amari Cooper, and you basically were so done with Amari Cooper that you said, you know what, Cleveland, I will take just a 5th rounder for him, and
Yeah.
that's like that. Like that's how you know you are just done with a player. Like when you just like when you accept the absolute bare minimum for him. Keanu Neal, like Leighton Vander Esch, to your point, David. Keanu Neal just needs to hang him up. Like he's had I don't know how many concussions he's had to change positions. So just so he could stay in the NFL, he went from free safety to linebacker.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. Like, it was kind of a cool story because he reunites with Dan Quinn, who was his coach in Atlanta when Dan Quinn was the head coach in Atlanta. But other than that, it's like you and Leighton Vander Esch, I kind of got the same thing going on, man. Like head, neck, that's nothing. That's nothing to play with, man. Like I get it. Like it's hard to say goodbye. It's hard to walk away. But you gotta have that conversation. You got.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, you got to realize that like the NFL is going to be a very small portion of your life, and you're going to have a long other part of your life that you're going to have to do something with. And if you have head and neck injuries where you have some of these players, and through we was like Demaryius Thomas just came out today that he had CTE, like when he before he CTE before he passed away. So I don't think you want to be necessarily in that kind of company. So I would be careful as I was him, and kudos to him for wanting to continue to play. But yeah, you should definitely be safe and see what ends up happening. That Randy Gregory, though, I think of all the people they've lost, I think Randy Gregory is going to be the biggest one they're going to notice. James Washington has been wildly inconsistent since he's been in the league. Same thing with Dante Fowler. None of those guys are straight up replacements, and they lost Greg the Leg too for their kicker for this season as well.
Like that's man.
So
like it's man, they in for a long season. Like they really are.
Well, luckily they play one of the eager divisions in football. And speaking of that, they also have the easiest schedule in the National Football League somehow. As a team that was like the 2 seed in the playoffs, they have the easiest schedule this season. Most of their difficult games are at home. Let's talk about their first game of the season. Let's see how we see their record shaking out. First one they go, Tampa Bay comes to Dallas. We thought it was going to be, whoever, but it will be Tom Brady being the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course, for the 22nd year, or Tom Brady just never goes away. How do you see Tampa Bay and Dallas shaking up in this Sunday night game?
Like it happened last year, except Tampa's still going to win it. You can make the argument that was the best game the Cowboys played collectively, and it was the first game of the season. Right, like if you go back last season and you look at all their games, you look at all the tape, look at all the highlights, you can make the argument like that was the best they played. Right, like however, like obviously you wish you would have gotten Ezekiel Elliott going a little bit more, but that nobody was running on that run front, that Tampa Bay run front, like nobody was just doing that. It might be a little easier this year, like no Ndamukong Suh for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No Ndamukong Suh. So but they still got Vita Vea. It's just like, hey, I'm still here. And
they just gave him a contract extension. So
but at the end of the day, Tom Brady at this stage is still better than Dak Prescott. So therefore, they win the game. Right? It's Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette. I get they don't have Gronk anymore, but Cameron Brate is more than serviceable to be a starting tight end in the NFL.
100%. He basically made OJ Howard completely
expendable.
Yeah, like they were like, we don't need you. Just like I know we used the first round pick on you, but you can go. Like, all right. I'm taking Tampa Bay to win this game too. I just can't see a scenario where Dallas wins this game. The next week, Cincinnati comes into Dallas, into Jerry World. How do you see this one shaking out with Cincinnati coming to town?
Well, I'll say that I'll just highlight this when we get to the preview. So Cincinnati, you want to be taken seriously, this is how you start. You start by beating teams you're supposed to beat. Right? You're supposed to beat the Dallas Cowboys. I'm being honest. You went to the Super Bowl last year. You're supposed to beat this team. Joe Burrow is supposed to come out and light their ass up. I swear to, like, Joe Burrow's supposed to throw. He's supposed to throw for like 350 against this team.
Yeah.
I'm so serious. Like, they don't have.
But will he?
He should. I think he will. Like well, okay. So you put Trevon Diggs on Jamar Chase. I'm taking Jamar Chase in that one. Right? Who? Anthony Brown on T. Higgins.
Yeah. Or Tyler Boyd, whoever you want.
Tyler Boyd. Like now, obviously, if you're Cincinnati, you got to replace C.J. Uzomah, who played a crucial part in your season last year. I don't know who they got playing that tight end right now. I have to pull up Cincinnati's roster. I don't have that in front of me, but I'm taking
1 second.
I'm taking Cincinnati. Either way, I'm taking Cincinnati to win it. I got Dallas starting 0-2.
I do think this game is going to be relatively close. I think if this game was in Cincinnati, Hayden Hurst is their starting tight end. After he flamed out in where at Baltimore and then Atlanta. Yeah, Hayden Hurst is the starting tight end for them.
Okay.
Doesn't exactly fill you with all that much confidence.
He's serviceable. He's
fine.
Yeah. I'm not saying he's like, Hayden Hurst is going to put over the top. I'm not saying that.
But if this game was in Cincinnati, I would take the Bengals. But since this game is in Jerry World, I'm going to go with the Cowboys to win this game. I'm going to have the Cowboys move up to 1-1. The next week they go to MetLife Stadium to take on the New York Giants. Actually, their next two games are within the division. They go to the Giants, and then Washington comes there. Do they win either of those games?
Yeah, they beat the Giants.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100%. I think they beat the Giants, and I think they lose to the Washington football team or the Commanders, whatever they want to call themselves these days.
Yeah, that's how that's going. What are they? 1-3.
Yeah, well, I got them at 2 and 2 and 2.
You got them at 2-2. I got them at 1-3.
The next week they go to Los Angeles, take on the Super Bowl champion Rams. It's an L for the Cowboys. It's an L. They fall to 2 and 3. At least in mine, and then they go to Philadelphia, take on the Eagles. We're going to be doing our Philadelphia Eagles season preview either tomorrow or Thursday, because Izzy could not make it for this show, and I guess we need to have him on here for the Jalen Hurts conversation.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So Philadelphia will be our next show, but they go to Philadelphia, take on the Eagles. Who wins that game?
This is in Philly. Oh man.
Yeah.
Philly should, right? Philly should win. You know. Again, what's his name? Trevon Diggs. You get AJ Brown. Like, you don't get a cakewalk on defense this year against the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, there is no one receiver where it's like you can single-handedly take out. Like, no, like now you got to bring your hard-hat lunch pail to come to work. Your saving grace is Jalen Hurts is still throwing the passes. That's literally it, right? So if you win, it's because Jalen Hurts kept y'all in the game. Right? Stupid turnovers, dumb passes, that kind of thing. But on paper, Philly should win this one.
I'm also going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to win this game as well. I have them going into a 3-game losing streak before they go into 2 games at home against the NFC North. First game against Detroit, the second game against Chicago before their bye week. How do you think they shake out between Detroit and Chicago in back-to-back weeks?
I see a split. Somehow, some way, I see them losing one and beating the other. I don't know who.
I'm gonna have the Cowboys beat both those teams. I just think they're on paper a much more talented team than Detroit or the Bears. By the way, I was looking at the Bears defense. We might be in for a rough season next season.
Yeah,
yeah. But yeah, then they have their bye week. Then they go to Green Bay, and then they also go to Minnesota. So they got in 4 to 5 weeks. They play all of the NFC North. So after the bye, they go to Green Bay, and then they go to Minnesota. How do you see these games shaking out?
I think the last time they played in Green Bay, they won that game, right? What was that, 2016?
Hold on a second.
Like, I think Zeke went crazy. Cowboys, Packers.
Cowboys won. So this game's in 2016. Cowboys won 30-16. Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott had 157 yards rushing in this game. Eddie Lacy was the leading rusher for the Packers. That's how long ago this was.
Yeah, like that's
and Ty Montgomery was the leading receiver for the Packers
before he became a running back.
Yeah. Devontae Adams had 2 catches for 34 yards in this game.
So yeah, like this was that was the last time Dallas played in Green Bay, and then Aaron Rodgers returned the favor, walk-off field goal. We know how that story ended. They lose this one. Maybe, I don't know. Like again, you talk about the Bears defense. That Packer offense is going to look awfully different without a certain dude catching passes.
It's true.
So we can we can do all we want. Like, yeah, they still got Aaron Rodgers. We have proven time, like it's been proven time and time again, he is not enough to win everything.
With that being said, I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys to actually lose to Green Bay and then beat Minnesota in Minnesota.
I take that back. They beat Green Bay. They lose to Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm gonna flip that around. I think they lose to Green Bay. And I think they beat Minnesota. Next week,
I got them at like.
I got them at 5-5 right now.
Detroit and Chicago.
I got them at 5-5 right now.
4-6. Yeah, I got them like 4-6, something like that.
And then they have the next 3 games at home. The Giants come there, the Indianapolis Colts come there, and then the Houston Texans come there. Do they win all 3 of these games? Yes or no?
They beat Minnesota. I mean, they beat New York, so they sweep New York. Indy could be tough because Indy has the offense to kill the clock. And, they still got Jonathan Taylor. They still got that offensive line.
And they still got Darius Leonard, and they still have a pretty solid defense. Because don't forget Stephon Gilmore's on that team now.
Okay, so I'm gonna take Indy to win that one. They win 2 out of the 3. They beat the Giants and they beat Houston. So that's 7. What's that? No, that's 8 wins for me.
I'm going to have them sweep all 3 of these games, actually. I know I just said about Indianapolis, but I just think Dallas is a better football team today than the Indianapolis Colts are. Because I don't really know. We still haven't really seen what the Indianapolis Colts are going to look like with Matt Ryan at the helm. Until I see that, I can't really predict what they're going to look like. Give me Indianapolis to lose this game. I got them 8-5. Going to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. I have them pulling out another win, going to 9-5.
Mm-hmm.
Their last 3 games are 2 games on the road and 1 game at home. They get Philadelphia home. They have to go to Tennessee, and then they have to go to Washington to play the Commanders to close out the season. How do you see that season wrapping up with the final games there in the regular season?
All the time. I can see them losing all 3. I could very well see them finishing the season on a 3-game losing streak. What would you say the winnable game here is in this one?
It's at Washington, I think.
I think it's Philly at home.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, one of those. I think they win. Those are the 2 games they win. I think they go to Tennessee and lose, but I think they beat Philadelphia and I think they beat Washington.
I don't
really believe in Washington. Like their mess that they have going on with everything going on. I just don't think they're going to be all that good.
Well, let's not act like Dallas isn't a mess. What minus the scandal?
Yeah, right? I mean they're not being federally investigated all the time. If Jerry Jones, at least Jerry Jones gives the money to the league he's supposed to give.
Jerry Jones is Jerry Jones. Like when
it's true.
Like, bro, like it's always talked about with him, like when they compare him to the other 31 powers that be. He's the only one that does a weekly radio show. He's the one that talks to the team before the coaches do. He's the one that in the press conferences they talk to him first. He makes it all like that's my issue with him, bro. Like he makes it all about him.
Yeah,
he talks about his foot, like his mortality. I would write any check big enough to win another Super Bowl. Like, bro, it's not about you, right? Like, you don't see Robert Kraft has 7. Robert Kraft don't do a weekly radio show. He don't talk to the team before Belichick does. He don't do none of that, bro.
Yeah, but I think when Jerry has become he's become the Dallas Cowboys. Like he's become bigger. Like I think if you remember, you have to understand that Jerry Jones he's gonna do this stuff until he's dead.
And therein lies the problem. What's his name? Sam Kroenke for the Rams.
Yeah.
He just won. Like he literally just won a Super Bowl, right? Not only did he not just win a Super Bowl, he just won the Stanley Cup. He owns the Colorado Avalanche on top of owning the Rams. I don't hear him doing nothing. Nobody even knew what he looked like until he got the trophy.
It's true.
All right, so like again, it's Jerry Jones, it's the curse of Jimmy Johnson. Right, you already know how I feel. Like, bro, stop making everything like you tried to make it about you, and it's been about you since the '90s, and it's literally bitten you in the ass. You have 3 playoff wins over the course of 28 years.
Yeah.
For reference, I'm 28. I'm like you. Ever since I have come into this world, you have 1 playoff win for every year I've been alive. And yet, so it's Jerry Jones. Like Jerry Jones is the downfall of his own team, and he don't even know it.
I think he knows it for sure. I think he might know it. But I have Dallas Cowboys at 11-6. I think that's good enough to probably be a playoff team in the NFC, if not win the NFC East. Dallas is going to be fine this season at least. I think they're a Super Bowl contender. As long as things work out the way they're supposed to work out.
No, they are not.
We'll see. If you have a different opinion than TJ, let us know down in the comment section. How many games do you think Dallas is going to win? Let us know. I've been David Hupp, and right there is Mr. TJ Hopkins. Did you get a funny text?
No, Cowboy fans love you. I'm laughing at you. Cowboy fans are loving you right now, brother.
Yeah, they're not really loving you right now. Jerry Jones.
What did you say? 10-7?
11-6.
Oh, 11-6. Well, the Cowboy fans who are, smart enough to know what's going on, they agree with me. They know Jerry's a problem.
We'll figure it out. We'll see what happens. We're going to be doing the Philadelphia Eagles show either tomorrow or Thursday, so keep an eye out for that content. I've been David Huffman. Right there is Mr. TJ Hopkins. TJ, what do we do here at the Prime, my friend?
We bring the heat, and it could go away for.
I've had just about enough, dude. Like it is. I'm recording this in my room, dude. Like the AC is kind of busted, and like it is sweltering hot in here, man.
Yeah.
It's not having.
Yeah, get that fixed.
I'm working on it, man. I'm working on it. I'll talk to you later, man. Everybody else have a good night and stay safe out there. Hopefully everybody had a good 4th of July as well. Thank you for the men and women who serve our country as well. We'll be back here tomorrow. You all have a good night. Peace out.
Yeah.